with regard to probable cause.
The shocking plot was laid out in court today as the juvenile suspects made their first appearances before a judge. Their plan to kill 15 to 20 educators and students at Burlington High School. Authorities say the students were going to take the principal, assistant principal, and a police liaison hostage.
After the school was secured, the parties were planning on taking out the phone lines, and once the building was secured, they were going to use the records of the school to go to specific rooms and assassinate or shoot parties that they had picked out or that they considered targets.
But police say the teen who was supposed to provide the guns got cold feet and backed out. That's when a confidential informant tipped off police and 5 boys, all 15 or 16 years old, were arrested. Police say Assistant Principal Dick Peterson was on the hit list.
Yeah, I guess I've been around long enough. I don't let things like that bother me. I mean, it's never happened to me before, but no, it doesn't bother me.
2 of the 5 boys arrested were released to their parents. Tonight, one of those parents told us, "When all is said and done, I think you'll find out this boils down to a kid unhappy with his home life. This was blown way out of proportion." The alleged mastermind was a 15-year-old, reportedly upset about the possibility of being sent away to a foster home. Friends of the boys say the suspects, all dressed in black, considered themselves Gothic and had been picked on by other students.
People around here are so close-minded, they pick on anything they don't understand.
They're good friends of mine, I know them quite well, and I just don't think they'd go through with it.
Do what you have to. That's the way I look at it. Do what you have to tighten security because this is my child's life.
Jeton Smith was so frightened by the threat, she kept her daughter, a sophomore, home from class today, and she stayed home from work to get some answers.
So when you say you're doing your best, then again you say you can't, it will be difficult for you to supply this. That's not your best.
Today there was extra security on campus and locker searches looking for weapons. But that's the exception, not the rule. Just like any other public high school, the main security measures in Burlington are keeping all of the doors locked except for the front door. But now some parents and students are demanding more.
I want the searches. I want them to be sitting there, okay, you know, dump out your purse. I mean, who cares about the privacy? I'd rather lose all of my privacy than to be scared every single day.
For them to put detectives in the school and to really tighten up security, close campus if they could, that would even help.
It's like the front building, you just walk in, anybody can walk in, start shooting, and nobody know what's going on.
But if you start having searches and whatnot, then you remind people of it every day. And then that really hurts the environment for learning.
Until they can assure my safety, then no, I won't be going back.
Police investigators say recent shootings in schools around the country led them to take a tip from an informant seriously. They say the suspects had no special reason for their plot.
Most of the reasoning seems to be over very simple things. Nothing seems to be extremely major. It was because they were picked on. It was because comments were made.
They also say there's nothing special about the people who were targeted.
There's no pattern. There's no set group of kids to say, well, it's this group or that group. It's just random.
The students were arrested even though police found they had no weapons.
Initially, one of the people involved had the weapons in the home. That person is the one that backed out. And because of that, that's why I made the comment that it probably would not have occurred today, is because the weapons were not available. And they had to come up with a new source.
Police say Principal Jose Martinez was one of the targets. He says there's only so much you can do to prevent something like this.
Other than turning the place into a downright security, patting everybody in and out every day, every moment. Short of that, I can't guarantee you that something couldn't happen.
Well, I'd be very concerned. I'd think that I could have died today, that I could have been on that list.
I will simply note under the new juvenile code that 93829 confidentiality of records
remember how sick I felt last night, too, when I heard it at first.
First, there was shock.
I was scared because I didn't know who it was or anything.
Was I gonna make it through the day alive?
Then the question, was the threat for real?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
I don't know, he might have. I don't think he ever seriously would have, but I could see the possibility of going to a certain degree and then stopping. I don't think he would actually hurt anybody, but I think he would have actually brought something to school. That's about it.
Because I don't think that they would have actually done it. Because I knew most of them, and they just don't seem like the type to do it.
Sick joke or not, the threat of assassination was terrifying. Knowing there was a list of potential targets, but not knowing who was on it or why.
If I was on the list, I definitely want to know.
Some people don't know, like, if they want to know if they're on the list, because then, like, they'll be afraid to, like, come back or meet those people or ever see them again.
And I want to know, am I a part of that list or whatever? So until they can inform me that I'm going to be safe at that building, then no, I won't be attending the school.
A number of students were kept home out of fear and concern, and those who went to class had a hard time concentrating.
Most people, our minds are on this, and a lot of people don't want to go to class because they don't know who, it could be anybody in that class. They don't know if it's really the people.
Yeah, I guess I've been around long enough. I don't let things like that bother me. I mean, it's never happened to me before, but no, it doesn't bother me.
He appears in person together with both his parents, his mother and his father.
One by one, 3 juvenile suspects went through their initial court hearing. Each time, their alleged plan to take over Burlington High School Monday morning was described in detail.
They indicated that they were not going to show up for school in the morning, but would gather multiple weapons in the morning and then go to the school to carry out their plan.
A plan, according to a confidential informant, that meant possibly taking the principal, assistant principal, and an officer liaison hostage, then using a code to lock down the school.
After the school was secured, the parties were planning on taking out the phone lines, and once the building was secured, they were going to use the records of the school to go to specific rooms and assassinate or shoot parties that they had picked out or that they considered targets.
The alleged mastermind of the plan is a 15-year-old who was reportedly upset about possibly being sent away to a foster home. His friends offer some insight into why some students would have been targeted in an attack.
Well, the people that were on his list were all people that were like picking on him and stuff, like calling him a loser just because of the way he dresses and the music he listens to.
I mean, you never know if somebody doesn't like you just for one little thing that you did. You don't know if they're gonna try to kill you or something.
Sarah Myers is a senior at Case High School in Racine. In her 4 years, she's seen a major crackdown on school violence, thanks to Paul McCary, patrolling the parking lot.
Smoking complaints, trespassing, some minor drug dealing, sometimes fights start. The kids end up causing problems at the various businesses that surround the high school, and if we make our presence known, a lot of that doesn't happen.
Former police officer Brian White is now directing principal of Case. Students now wear visible identification on their way to class. A Mount Pleasant police officer enforces order in the halls, and attitudes are adjusted by enforcing respect.
You don't have to care or like the position I hold as a principal, but you have to respect the position of principal and respect each other.
Ever since a former student shot an assistant superintendent in Wauwatosa, Southeast Wisconsin schools have been on alert. And Case High School now has a locked door policy.
Given the events of the past year and a half or 2 years of violence in schools, we take very little for granted anymore.
And Sarah says it's a sign of the times.
It's strange that our generation has changed how everyone else perceives everything. I think that that's frightening, but...
Bringing a gun to school.
Right, it is, but it's done. People do it.
In Racine, Brian McKeag for today's TMJ4.
I was shocked for Burlington area, really, because we don't have things like that around here.
and the 5 individuals were planning to enter the school armed with guns, at which time they were going to lock down the doors in the school and shoot certain people that they hated along with some school officials.
His counterpart at the state level is Miss Amanda Todd, the media coordinator for the Wisconsin Supreme Court.
He kept talking about making a list and stuff like that, and it was just kind of just basically talk. He wasn't serious with anything.
Friends of the 5 boys say they talked about getting back at students who picked on them.
They did get harassed a lot and called names, but they never really got minded too much about it. Just kind of turned around and went, eh. I get picked on by a lot of people, but I just look away, don't think twice about it.
Picked on because they were different than the mainstream student body, hanging around with a handful of kids who dressed all in black and considered themselves gothic.
I guess they dress weird, but that's only to show their personality and stuff.
People around here are so close-minded, they pick on anything they don't understand.
But these friends say while the 5 teens may have talked big, they would have never gone through with the plan.
Jokingly oh, I'd still like to kill him, but not like, I'm gonna kill him, they were bloodthirsty, and they're good friends of mine, and I know them quite well, and I just don't think they'd go through with it.
I know all the kids, and I know them pretty well, but I could see it happening, but I don't know if it would actually have taken place. I think they don't have, the courage to go through with it.
Another thing you can do is add gray to the outside of here with your colored pencils, or with one layer of the wide marker, and you could just kind of and blend it in there like that. Light touch and use.
And I want to know, am I a part of that list or whatever? So until they can inform me that I'm going to be safe at that building, then no, I won't be attending the school.
I don't think that the other students should have a right to know who was on the list, because they could harass the list people or whatever. Yeah. But if I was on the list, I definitely want to know.
I do believe something could have and would have happened if gone undetected, or if we had not followed up on it. I'm not sure it would have happened today, though. They said, no, we just don't like them. Why don't you like them? It's because they picked on us, because they've made fun of us in the past, and therefore we've targeted them.
And closing doors after certain hours, and having only one entrance.
Receiving any help in working through some of these
through the how can we do to secure the place, and those 2 facilities.
For the most part, they're regular kids that were angry, and for whatever reason decided that this was going to be their way to handle the situation.
I was really worried about her. I wanted to run to the school right there and then and pull her out.
Frances LaFranzo panicked when she heard her freshman daughter could have been in danger this morning.
Didn't know where to go. I didn't know if she was okay. I was literally freaking out.
Lisa Hurst just moved to Burlington. When she heard of the alleged gunfire plot at school, she worried for her 1.5-year-old son.
Somebody breaks up with their girlfriend in school, and then they shoot people. So what are you going to do? I mean, you're afraid to send your kid to school now.
For 10 years, Dan Kirkpatrick has helped Burlington kids stay out of trouble, trading baseball cards at his downtown business.
They come in here and they're just good kids. I can't imagine anybody in town actually thinking of doing that, Myself, I think it's something straight out of the movies.
Everyone we spoke with here in downtown Burlington is shocked that this has happened here. Many of them moved from Milwaukee to get away from the crime, and they're concerned that the threat of violence has happened so close to home.
What on earth have made these young men decide to do this sort of thing? You know, I mean, I just don't understand the generation nowadays.
Frances says times are changing, even for Burlington.
When I hear from what my child tells me, you know, it's here. Unfortunately, it's here. I don't care what anybody says, it's here.
And she's thankful that police and school officials acted in time. In Burlington, Brian McKeag, today's TMJ4.
Information came to our department late Saturday evening from a person who gave us information that we could have problems in the school on Monday morning.
Looking at cameras and closing doors after certain hours and having only one entrance into the main office during the school day. And we're at South that, you know, you cannot be joking about.
What we know is that anything can fuel it, and so it became a very serious matter right from when we gathered the information.
Burlington is not isolated. And when I found out about this yesterday, you can imagine what I felt, that here November 16th, 1998, it could have happened right here in Burlington.
As these Burlington High students leave volleyball practice tonight, they say the fear factor at school is starting to subside.
It is getting a lot better today. I mean, people are getting a lot more comfortable with everything that happened.
But on the eve of tomorrow's court appearance by 3 of the 5 juvenile suspects, police are saying tonight there was a backup plan to get additional guns. Weapons police say they needed after the first boy backed out.
They spoke of a second and other sources of weapons, and we wish to continue on that and find out exactly where those were coming from if we can.
Police also say they will be keeping close tabs on the group the alleged juvenile conspirators were part of here at Burlington High, the so-called black-wearing Gothic group, and their intended targets identified as cowboys. Some students say the two groups had a long-running feud.
I had them in some classes, both of them together, and they threatened each other. Well, the Gothic people threaten the Cowboys sometimes.
But the principal says the Cowboys were just part of the alleged hit list and that it's unfair to single them out.
Explain to me why there are only 2 Cowboys on the list of 12. Why are there some special ed kids on there? Why are there some preps on there? Why are some jocks on there?
But Principal Martinez adds, as the case moves forward, just who topped that list should become more clear. Reporting from Burlington for the night team, Patrick Elwood, today's TMJ4.
Businesses need to save on transport.
I can assure you he does know what eco-efficiency means. And his name is George Meyer. He's the secretary.
The problems that we're facing in this world, and they surely know the solutions. And
we work with some of the best people in video production, and they did every single aspect of this: camera work, lighting, music, directing, editing, and not only did we learn a lot from them, but it is my distinct honor to present to you our video. Get a grip.
Just act normal, just act like it didn't happen. That's all you really can do.
Kevin Fennell is getting back into his daily routine. He stayed home from school yesterday trying to cope with an upsetting phone call from police.
Police department called my dad. I got home. He's like, "You're on the hit list, stay home."
Kevin was shocked. He says the 5 teenagers wanted to get even with anyone who'd ever picked on them.
I never did, but they just didn't like me anymore.
No, I don't want to talk to them. Friends?
Yeah, we used to be pretty good friends for about a year.
The principal of Burlington High School tries to help Kevin and the other students. He's also trying to deal with his own fears.
There was some anger, there was some disappointment, there was some shock. You know. But I'm a person who prays a lot, and so that's helped too.
Extra counselors are available at the school for those who want to talk about the situation. Sarah Babe already talked about the case to police. She says she's a suspect's girlfriend, and he warned her not to go to school on Monday.
They didn't really tell me much, but from what I know, they had pretty much everything, because these weren't stupid kids. They were really smart. I know they were. And believe it or not, they're really nice, too.
Kevin doesn't see it that way at all.
It's kind of a shock. I was shocked.
In Burlington and Racine County, Cynthia Vale, today's TMJ4.
Adam Seidel, with his Western clothes and big truck, says he's one of 100 cowboys at Burlington High School.
All we do is associate together, and we all stick up for each other. And I think majority are in one clique or another, whether it's the hick group or the goth group or the group that wears all the baggy clothes.
Cliques have been around forever. For me,
Psychotherapist Mervyn Langley says joining a clique is a normal part of adolescence.
it's a time of experimentation, searching for a meaning for one's life, searching for an identity.
Langley says those answers, though, should start at home. But it is okay for teens to bond outside of the home because of music or fashion.
They mainly dress in really big, baggy clothes.
The main difference between cliques now and in years past is clothing. That may have also been the source of conflict between these two groups here at Burlington High School.
We have a fight about something, and all of a sudden they come back and they want to kill off one big group of people.
It's not like in other communities where there's heavy gang involvement and there's big robberies. It's nothing like that. It's one or two individuals just not getting along, and they happen to dress differently. It's their actions that count, not how they dress.
And Angela Bettis, today's TMJ4.
We will be monitoring them as well as the school to make sure that nothing grows out of this, that something wasn't created here that's going to carry on any further.
There's a lot of rumors going on in school today. Everybody's talking about it and stuff.
I think it's kind of scary that someone our age can think about killing someone.
The sun cast an eerie glow over Burlington High School this afternoon, mirroring the mood inside today. Some students showed up late to classes, still apprehensive about their safety.
I was afraid, maybe some other students would try to imitate these kids and try to get the publicity that this is getting and bring, a gun to school or something.
Others weren't afraid, but spent a lot of class time talking about how to prevent future problems.
We decided to, accept people for what they are and try not to put each other in groups, so it'd be a lot easier.
That student is referring to the reason 5 of her peers allegedly planned to take over Burlington High School. The so-called mastermind wanted to get back at students who had made fun of him. Whatever the cause, many students don't like the end result, a tainted reputation for the community.
Being a small town, just having something that's like this on nationwide news, and even I heard that it was again over in London, and that it's just really bad for the city.
They spoke of a second and other sources of weapons, and we wish to continue on that and find out exactly where those were coming from if we can.
Today was a very normal day. I think the kids have put it behind them. Our attendance was pretty near normal. There were still some parents that had some concerns and kept their kids home. But in general, pretty normal day.
The staff also will be bending over backwards to make them feel safe and wanted and welcomed. And the staff is real good about that. It's not like in other communities where there's heavy gang involvement and there's big robberies. It's nothing like that. It's one or two individuals just not getting along and they happen to dress differently. It's their actions that count, not how they dress.
Community is isolated, and especially the city of Burlington. In place, I hope that we continue with the community response.
To our hearts, because we also have children who come to this school. And so it comes down to it, and that's where we're at with that. We are certainly open to suggestions.
And then I have a question. As the principal of Burlington High School, I've never seen you. I've been here numerous times. I've been through the hallways with my son. I can tell you.
They happen in various places. They happen.
If they really want to do it that bad and they have that much hurt against them, I don't think a metal detector and security guards walking around our schools are going to stop them. If they want to do it, they're going to do it anyways.
Metal detectors and security guards, just some of the options mentioned in hopes of making Burlington High School safer. But Principal Jose Martinez warned the crowd against getting a false sense of security. Another parent brought up the issue of a student dress code. Administrators say one does exist, but some students say the suspects were picked on at school because of the black, Gothic-looking clothing they wore.
If there had been a dress code of some kind in this school where they weren't allowed to dress quite the way they were, they might not have been teased. This whole thing could have been averted from the beginning.
A number of students took advantage of the opportunity last night to speak, calling on more involvement from everyone in the community.
How can we help our students? It would be helpful to know your neighbors.
I know my neighbors. They're very concerned. In fact, this afternoon I went over and I talked to some of my neighbors. They asked me what I was doing, what college I'm going to, how I felt about situations around the high school. How many of you can say that you've done that in the last month? How many of you are willing to take the time to spend time to know these kids that are in your neighborhood?
Students and some parents also stood up and commended the police and administrators for taking this threat so seriously. Reporting from the newsroom, Cynthia Vale, today's TMJ4.
Kids say a lot of things that they don't mean, and they get mad at older people, and and they say things, but they're not always fulfilled, and I think this was the case. But
we made the decision about a year ago to homeschool, and I was probably slower to accept than my wife was. She really wanted to, and needless to say, it's pretty easy decision now, and we feel good about it.
We're not a school that has many fights. We're thankful for that. But we do have, our kids do have their differences, and rather than looking for fights, they generally come and alert us that, hey, this is what's happening, and we help them through those solutions.
If there had been a dress code of some kind in this school to where they weren't allowed to dress quite the way they were, they might not have been teased. This whole thing could have been averted from the beginning.
How can we help our students? It would be helpful to know your neighbors. I know my neighbors. They're very concerned. In fact, this afternoon I went over and I talked to some of my neighbors. They asked me what I was doing,
The staff also will be bending over backwards to make them feel safe and wanted and welcomed. And the staff is real good about that.
Students went to class this morning with a little wariness. One boy still wondered whether everyone had been caught.
I don't know if they got all the kids, and that's kind of scary.
Some people were even scared to be here yesterday. They didn't know what would happen, what it'd be like to be here. So some people were pretty scared to be here.
I'm surprised that people took it so far. Because, I don't know, I didn't think it would go that far.
Amy is one of 200 students absent yesterday, many out of fear. The students who did come to school found the situation was not a laughing matter.
I was suspended because I said to my friend, "Do you have your bulletproof vest on?"
And you think that was fair?
Yeah, I would at the time.
According to the prosecutor, rivalry between two groups of students got serious, leading to a hit list and elaborate plans for revenge. The principal says this is a rare instance that just went too far.
It's not like in other communities where there's heavy gang involvement and there's big rivalries. It's nothing like that. It's one or two individuals just not getting along, and they happen to dress differently. It's their actions that count, not how they dress.
Hey, thanks a lot. Good luck today.
We have cowboys, and we have some Gothic kids, and we have some preppies, and we have our jocks, and we have our jockettes, and every once in a while you have one or two that have differences, and all of a sudden it's the whole group that's generalized as being one against the other, and that's not true.
There is an interview which was conducted wherein he stated to the interviewing officer that despite the fact that police were aware of the plan, although it would probably not occur as planned that the plan could be brought to fruition at a future date. This was stated directly to the police officer. It certainly constitutes a basis for this court to make a finding of an ongoing significant risk of harm to others. Appears by Assistant District Attorney Richard Barta, Robert Flancher, the District Attorney, Mike Niska.
Kirk Ivor Warren appears in his own person and by his attorneys Gerald P. and Bridget E. Boyle.
Evaluation. Mr. Boyle, or Ms. Boyle, do you have copies of that petition?
We do, and for the purpose
So there's been some agreement as to a waiver hearing date. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
That is correct.
And those dates are?
Motion date.
It was fairly simple and went by fairly quickly. In less than an hour, 3 teenagers entered a Racine County juvenile courtroom and heard charges filed against them, 3 counts each of conspiracy to commit first-degree intentional homicide. There was no way to tell what the boys were thinking as an alleged plot landed them further into legal trouble, but prosecutors say a plan to secure Burlington High School administrators, then go classroom by classroom to shoot staff and students is serious.
We have evidence that we believe rises at this point in time to a level of probable cause that these 3 conspired to commit 3 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, and at least one of those parties took acts in furtherance of that conspiracy, which then is imputed to the other 2 by the vicarious liability.
Noted attorney Gerald Boyle is representing one of the suspects. While he said he had little information about the case at this point, he did share the feelings of his client's parents.
They're hurting big time. They're the parents, akin to learning one of their children has been injured, dead in an automobile accident. It's the same kind of emotion they're feeling now. Their little boy's in jail, and they're worried about being in jail for many, many years. So it's obviously a very troubling time for them.
Outside the juvenile detention facility, there was a show of support for the 3 Burlington boys accused in a school plot.
A lot of kids talk, you know, a lot of kids in high school are stressed out and people pick on them, they get mad at their teachers and they want to kill them, but a lot of them don't do it, and no one will ever know if they were going to do it or not except for them.
And I think it's good that they caught it before anything happened, if anything was going to happen. But I just don't really think there's a way for them to tell for sure if anything was going to be gone through with.
The student endorsements did not matter inside the courtroom. In less than an hour, 3 teenagers, 1 15 and 2 16, were charged with 3 counts of conspiracy to commit first-degree intentional homicide for an alleged plot that included taking Burlington High School administrators hostage, cutting phone lines, and going room by room to shoot students the suspects reportedly didn't like.
If the juvenile speaks,
it's a parent's worst nightmare, according to one of the 16-year-old's attorneys.
Their little boy's in jail, and they're worried about being in jail for many, many years. So it's obviously a very troubling time for them.
Today's court appearances were just the beginning. The 3 boys will be back before a judge next month to determine if they should undergo psychological evaluations and be waived into adult court. In Racine, Vivian King, today's TMJ4.
We have evidence that we believe rises at this point in time to a level of probable cause that these 3 conspired to commit 3 counts of first-degree intentional homicide.
I wouldn't want to be around them, like, just because, you know, they plan to hurt people I know, people that I don't really think did much against them.
Despite the fact that police were aware of the plan, although it would probably not occur as planned, that the plan could be brought to fruition at a future date.
Speak with the parents and assure them that they're safe. I did talk to one of our students' father this morning from Iceland and assured him that everything is well.
Boyle, B-O-Y-L-E, present at council table as his mother and father.
Mr. Boyle, or Ms. Boyle, do you have a copy?
Brought up, and then the waiver hearing in this.
And one of the criteria for determining whether a juvenile should be released from detention is whether or not there's been any change in circumstances that would warrant or augur for that release. And I understand, Mr. Boyle, your point that there are two others that may not be in detention.
There is no conflict to our attention that the Gothics and the Cowboys are having a problem. Otherwise, explain to me why there are only 2 Cowboys on the list of 12. Why are there some special ed kids on there? Why are there some preps on there? Why are some jocks on there?
We'll wait to see what the district attorney does with the charges. We will continue to investigate. We will continue to let people know that anything that comes forward we will act on. And I think it's time for the community to get back together and get back to business as usual.
One of the suspects released to his parents says the plot was all a joke, but police don't think so. They say the suspects had detailed plans down to snipping phone lines and taking top administrators hostage. Police say there was even a backup plan to get additional guns, which police say the boys needed after the first boy backed out.
They spoke of a second and other sources of weapons, and we wish to continue on that and find out exactly where those were coming from if we can.
Police also say they will be keeping a close eye on the group the suspects were a part of, the Goths, who sometimes dress in Gothic-style black clothing. Police have identified the suspects' targets as the Cowboys, a group of about 100 students at the high school who typically dress in Western-style clothing. Some students say the two groups had a long-running feud.
They had them in some classes, both of them together, and they threatened each other. Well, the Gothic people threaten the Cowboys sometimes.
I think all 5 of them should be expelled.
If students and administrators get their way, the 5 suspects won't be back in Burlington schools ever.
I wouldn't want to be around them, like just because You know, they plan to hurt people, I know.
All 5 will be recommended for expulsion. Right now, we're dealing with the 2 students that have not been charged by the police.
Those 2 suspects are currently suspended from school until their expulsion hearing on December 1st.
It could be for a short time, it could be for a year, it could be for 2 years, it could be for 3 years.
Administrators are recommending expulsion because of the seriousness of the threat, and students say they're relieved.
You don't know if they'd want to maybe do it again.
I don't know what could set them off.
Knowing that they actually had thoughts like that, and they might have thoughts like that again.
An expulsion would shift the responsibility for education from the Burlington School District to the boys' parents.
If a private school would like to accept them, that's their prerogative. If they would like to homeschool, that's their prerogative. And every other public school in the state also has the option to not accept them because they are expelled from a public school district.
I hear it too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
News crews were setting up live shots at dawn, broadcasting the news nationwide.
3 Burlington, Wisconsin teenagers have been sitting in jail for 4 days now.
The invasion of cameras, cell phones, and reporters from New York, Chicago, and LA is overwhelming for some local residents, a thrill for others.
And exciting in my own backyard have all these people here.
But the reporters who packed the hearing room are enemies in the minds of some residents.
I just think the media coverage is ridiculous. I think it just exacerbates the problem across the country.
We've been to Jonesboro and Paducah and Springfield, and once you've seen what can happen in cities like that, and then you hear about threats like this one, you have to take them seriously.
All the news cars in the parking lots around town had some people frustrated, but reporters say they're really not here to sensationalize. They're here to learn from the case.
If the authorities are to be believed, a lot of things here went right. So what do we learn from that?
Could have happened Monday. Would have really been a terrible thing.
But will the national attention hurt Racine and Burlington?
I think a lot of people are worried that Racine's going to get a bad reputation. But otherwise, hey, it's happening, so it's got to be reported.
But news crews will continue to do their jobs until this case is over. In Racine, Cynthia Vale, today's TMJ4.
The manpower hours for this particular case, it was not overwhelming. It has been a lot more manpower trying to answer questions from news media and those sorts of sources. Has been substantially more hours than required to investigate the case so far.
All right, and go ahead.
And you guys want to hear some Manson, or what? So people get an idea that he's like not that bad of a person. Oh, that's bad. I don't think any of us should be serving jail time. I just don't think that's right.
Sean Jones insists he and his friends were only talking. that they would have never carried out a plot to kill. He says everyone has morbid thoughts once in a while.
If they're going to take this so serious, I mean, what are they going to do? Start arresting those people because they think they wish the other person should be dead? I mean, everyone gets mad at someone sometime in their life and says something stupid like that.
Sean told the program Extra that he backed out of the alleged plan Saturday night.
It was never really planned to happen, and it got brought up again, and we're just like, well, this is getting really old.
His mother says all 5 boys spent time at their home.
They're all respectful to me. They even call me Mom. They're very good kids. And none of them have been in trouble, except for just some minor things that teenage boys get into.
Now they're in a lot of trouble, charged with conspiracy to commit homicide. But Sean says he hopes he can help them from the outside.
I'm just talking to all the media. I'm trying to get them out of trouble, telling them the truth, and since they're not really having a chance to speak their mind. I think it would have been appropriate to do an investigation, but I don't think taking 3 of the kids and possibly sentencing them for 40 years, that's just, I mean, maybe a little bit of detention time for everyone.
I just want the people to know that I know these boys. They've been here a lot, and I know none of them would ever have gone through with this. I make a point of knowing his friends. I take them places and do things with them. So I just know they would never have fallen through with this.
The plot was to unfold Monday morning at Burlington High School. 5 students would meet at the school, go in armed with guns, and shoot several students and administrators. One suspect said they were going after certain people first, and then it was going to be, quote, a bloodbath, basically a suicide mission. Another told police they were planning on eventually having a standoff with police and were prepared to die. That they had also agreed to take Saturday as a personal day to tie up any unfinished business in their lives and would use that day to say their goodbyes. The petition says it was agreed by all 5 not to shoot any of the innocent students or teachers unless they became uncooperative or got in the way of the ultimate goal in this operation. And one suspect said it was his impression that if one of the other suspects got his hand on a gun, that he would have carried this shooting out. Vivian King, today's TMJ4.
A 16-year-old sophomore at Pewaukee High School lashed out Wednesday. Just like the teens in Burlington, he was frustrated after being picked on by other students.
He was going to go home, get a gun, come back to school and hold the gun to the heads of students until he got his calculator back.
Pewaukee teachers called police immediately. The boy was taken into custody and cited for disorderly conduct. In Kenosha, another 15-year-old boy was arrested and charged with making similar threats at Bradford High School on Tuesday. Psychologist Chris Seekert calls copycatting.
And when something starts in one district or in one place, there seems to be a few of them in a cluster of behaviors nearby.
In Oconomowoc, administrators are heading it off at the pass. A memo has been sent out to every teacher.
Kind of reminding them to be a little bit more hypersensitive or sensitive to the needs of children.
Seekert says the hypersensitivity stems from school shootings, like the most recent one in Jonesboro. Counselors say there's a fine line between making a joke and making a serious threat. And in the same way that you can't make a joke about taking a bomb in your bag on the airplane, you can't joke about shooting kids at school. Because they say in this day and age, safety and security are no laughing matter.
And I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry that we can't as a society joke, but that's where we are right now. We have to take things seriously.
In Waukesha County, Angela Bettis, today's TMJ4.
And then work with a broad-based community.
I have to say that with the working cooperation that we've had
in the classroom today, teaching, hoping to do the best they can It was clearly, but we were very concerned in light of what we...
Students at that time and also the parents, if they do have influences.
You're getting into the essence of the charges and whether or not it is a joke or what. I'm hearing those kind of things, but I'm not at liberty at this time to really comment on that. All I can say is that they're obviously scared, and that's to be expected. Okay, thank you.